Alô, alô, testado. Alright, so this is working now.
Oh, pretty good. How are you? Good to see you.
Is she here?
No, she's not. No, she stayed back. She's touring.
Então, eu sou a Vera da Poli.
Is this working? I can't tell if it's working or not.
It is. Yeah, we tested it. It's working.
Okay.
Boa tarde, pessoal. Obrigado pela presença de vocês. Estou começando um pouquinho atrasado, então vou falar o Rory bem rapidinho. Esse é um evento que a gente está organizando através da Cátedra de Comunicação Aberta, que está sediada no NIED, em parceria com a Cátedra NIED do Canadá, na Athabasca. O Rory é professor do Canadá, que é a Universidade Aberta do Canadá. A Cátedra ICD é em NIED, então tem um mandato para trabalhar muito com a questão de REA e educação aberta. Ele vai fazer uma introdução para a gente do tema de REA e vai aprofundar um pouco as ciências, para quem quiser uma discussão um pouco mais profunda. A gente está programado para ir até as 4, mas provavelmente vai acabar antes, uma horinha de palestra, que a gente talvez bata um papo, para quem ficar por aqui. Então, sem mais delongas, eu passo a palavra para o Rory. Lembrando que amanhã tem um evento de educação aberta, sociedade e tecnologia. O Rory vai estar lá na USP também amanhã. Mais algumas pessoas que vão falar sobre esse tema para quem tiver interesse. Tem mais detalhes na nossa página também. That was it, Rory. All yours.
You hear me okay? Yeah. Bom dias. I'll be talking to you today about a particular perspective on open education resources coming from Canada. Global picture. Resources if we're going to go anywhere in any educational context. The slides here are all under Creative Commons Attribution License. Some of the images, however, are under a fair dealing or fair use right available to us in Canada and in the United States. So this is a picture of Canada in the springtime. And our university is situated up here in northwestern Canada. It's the most northern university in Canada. However, we have no students on campus. We do not have a campus. It is an open university. We have 45,000 students, all of them online. And this was me a few years ago trying to clean my car, but Canada is also green in the summertime, so it is not always as snowy as that. And this is a picture of our university offices. They are administrative offices. There is no campus for students because we don't have students. Much of the research done for this presentation has been done as part of the eMundus European project, and we have partners in several countries around the world looking into open education resources, MOOCs, and virtual mobility. And we have a partner in Brazil at the University Federal de Sao Paulo. As part of this, we have developed the eMundus Atlas, which lists where different open education resources, MOOC activities are happening around the world and what they are doing. But I want to start now by talking about the new economy. The world economy that I grew up in does not exist anymore. The changes have made it so that personal livelihoods are on the line, new markets are up for grabs, and national fortunes are at stake. And the decisions we make now are going to have a profound effect on our future and our children's future. And this is based on an understanding that the economic drivers are no longer manufacturing and transportation, which they were, but are now computers and telecommunications. So the economy now is not dependent on marketing. It is dependent on computers and on telecommunications, not manufacturing and transportation. John Frank and Fraser Mustard remind us that societies that have a strong, coherent sense of what is important and a collective will probably be the most successful. That is, that societies that understand and respond to the changes in the economy will be more successful than those that refuse to accept that the world has changed and that the economy is different. The world economy today is based on bits of information. We often look on them as when we're on the internet or on our computers, there's voice coming, there's data coming, there's images coming. But in fact, what is coming to you are just bits of information. It is only the intelligence at the end that converts these bits into voice, data, and images. Nicholas Negroponte reminded us many years ago the characteristics of these bits, just the organization of zeros and ones. The world economy today is driven by this. Not by manufacturing, not by oil, not by pulp and paper, these big industries. The world economy is driven by the difference between these zeros and ones. Taiichi Sakaya wrote a book a few years ago called The Knowledge Value Revolution. And his argument is that we are now in a knowledge economy, and that the zeros and ones are knowledge. The difference between those two memory sticks is the knowledge that is on them. And some people are willing to pay more for the knowledge than others. He also claims that knowledge is embedded in objects, and what we are buying is the knowledge. For example, this iPhone, the material value of this is about $1.50. $1.25 of that is some of the precious metals that are in there. It sells for $800. What are we buying? We are not buying just that precious metal and the plastic and the other types of little tiny metal components. We are buying the knowledge that is embedded in the device. If we buy a simple object like a glass, we are not buying the glass, the sand that created the glass. We are buying the knowledge and skill that was embedded in the glass. And this is Taiichi Sakaya's claim, that whatever we buy, what we are buying is the knowledge embedded within the object and not the object itself. So let's get real and understand what we're talking about. Is we live in a knowledge society. What is the teacher's role? The teacher's role is to share knowledge. Teachers are central to the knowledge economy. In Alberta, we have more oil than Saudi Arabia. We have an area bigger than England of tar. It's solid oil. It's mixed with sand. Some say our economy is based on that oil that comes from the sand. And what Taiichi Sakaya would say, and I agree with him, is that no, without knowledgeable engineers, chemists, skilled tradespeople, all we have in northern Alberta is mud. There is nothing there. There is no value there without the knowledge people who put value into the material. So more and more we are beginning to realize that our economy is based on this knowledge and not on physical goods. With globalization, this site is a McKinsey global study that came out about 2 or 3 days ago. And they talk about how it's changed from a 20th to 21st century economy, from tangible goods, goods we can touch and hold, to intangible flows of data and information. The world economy is based on these intangible flows now. And it used to be that this was a privilege of the advanced economies, but now developing economies too are participating. It used to be capital and labor intensive, but now it is knowledge intensive. The economy is knowledge intensive. It's based on digital infrastructure. Small enterprises can participate internationally where they could never participate internationally before. There's more exchanges of fees and content. Global access to information is becoming essential. And information, where it used to just go from the advanced countries to the developing countries, it now goes both ways. And this McKinsey Global Institute chart shows it, how the social networking users with at least one foreign connection, there's 914 million people. International travelers, 429 million. Cross-border e-commerce shoppers, 360 million. People who live outside their home country, 244 million. Cross-border workers, 44 million. Cross-border online students, 13 million. And students studying abroad, 5 million. And all of these figures are growing at a very rapid rate. Today, the richest company in the world is Alphabet. Alphabet owns Google. It is capitalized higher than any other country in the world, company. It's higher than ExxonMobil and General Electric and all of these different companies. What does Google produce? Nothing. They produce nothing. What they do is they change ones to zeros and zeros to ones. That is what they do. And yet they are the richest company in the world. Microsoft, it's a software company, one of the richest companies in the world. What does it produce? Nothing. It produces ones and zeros. It changes a 1 to a 0 to a 1. So if you put this data onto an exponential graph, the future was eminently predictable. It was pretty well a straight line, all the way back from the early electromechanical devices, through vacuum tubes, through transistors, right through to the present day with our silicon chips, etc. That the world is changing exponentially, and we are thinking linearly. So we are not keeping up with what's happening. Kurzweil predicted in the 1980s that by 2010, we would have a computer with more intelligence than a human being. In 2008, the Blue Gene computer was invented by IBM. It has more intelligence than a human being. It came 2 years before Kurzweil predicted it. And what he says is that by 2020, this machine will be on our mobile device. A computer more intelligent than a human being. By 2030, there will be a computer with more intelligence than the entire human race. And by 2040, we will be on the computer's desktop. Of course, we have to take these predictions with a grain of salt, because when Elvis died, there were a few hundred Elvis impersonators. 10 years after his death, there were thousands of Elvis impersonators. 20 years after his death, there were hundreds of thousands of Elvis impersonators all over the world. And if this trend continues, half the world will be Elvis impersonators by the end of the century. With this digital trend going on, it is making mobile learning possible. And I got into mobile learning very early, because in 1999 I was driving through a small village in the Philippine Islands, and I slammed on the brakes because I could not believe what I saw. And it was a farmer in a field behind 2 oxen, and he was digital messaging. In Canada in 1999, nobody was digital messaging. It did not exist in Canada. But what really drew me was that I knew that the device he had in his hand was not just a mobile phone. It was a powerful computer. In fact, it was more powerful than the computer I had on my desktop 2 years before. And that's when I started to think, we have a great possibility here for mass education and reaching masses of people using these digital devices. I checked around, and in 1999, the Philippines, excuse me, did more digital messaging than any other country in the world on a per capita basis. I checked last year, and they were still doing more digital messaging than any other country in the world on a per capita basis. Mobile devices are ubiquitous. They're everywhere in the Philippines. Right now, there are 3 billion, more than 3 billion internet connections out of a world population of 7.3 billion people. 2/3 of the people on the internet are from developing countries. 40% of the world's population is on the internet. Most people access the internet with mobile devices. Over 2.3 billion people have mobile broadband. 55% of them are in developing countries. This is the world we live in. This is the world as it exists now. 4.5 billion mobile subscriptions, 1.5 billion mobile internet users. Over 90% of the world's population is covered by cellular signals. And the places not covered are in very isolated regions of Canada, Russia, Brazil, some of the big countries. They are not in most of the developing countries. Most developing countries have excellent broadband coverage now. There's more time now spent on your mobile devices than with desktops. In fact, last year was the first year they sold more tablets than desktops. So that desktop world we lived in is in the past. The world is mobile. 1 out of every 3 people only access the internet using a mobile device. Of course, many years ago they invented the mobile phone with integrated camera. But if you'd have bought the computing power found inside an iPhone 5S in 1991, it would have cost you $3.5 million. That's how much it's progressed. Incredible progress on these devices. I show this slide because I made this in 2006. And I was amazed then by, wow, you know, your device, it's a book, it's a radio, it's a telephone, a personal digital assistant, game player, fax machine, camera, web browser, email, and a clock, and it even allows you to phone. And I was amazed, and I used to show this slide, and everybody was amazed. Well, now this is ridiculous. There are 1 million applications for your mobile device. Over 1 million applications. Over 50,000 medical applications on your device. So to call it a phone is just absurd. And in fact, all my sons have mobile devices. And do you think they'd call home to their mother? They don't even call home to their mother. It's just text and using the applications that are on their mobile device. Pervasive computing is here now among us. What does this say to us as educators? I suggest it's this, that we should design, and we have the educational creationists who are still dominating the views in many countries. Just a reminder as I go on that Pope Pius XII confirmed that there is no intrinsic conflict between Christianity and the theory of evolution. People should read the encyclical because we have the creationist view of education. These are people who believe that God created the classroom many years ago and it's unchanging, it's the only way of teaching. This is the way you must teach people. That all other ways are inferior and that nothing else will work. They have no facts to support this. Let me repeat this. They have no facts to support this, that the classroom teaching is better than any other form of teaching. In fact, the classroom was not created by God. It was created by pagans. Hero of Alexandria created the classroom, at least in the Western context. He created the classroom. Why? For one reason. Not for any pedagogical reason, for one reason. And that was because there was one copy of the manuscript. With one copy of the manuscript, the only way we could bring people into knowledge is by bringing them into a classroom. That's how the classroom was invented. And again, pagan was Ero was a pagan. So it was not created by God, the classroom. However, St. Paul, the patron saint of distance education, and the patron saint of the large city to the south of us, he created distance education. He sent his epistles all around the world, the known world, and people learned from him at a distance. One could argue that God did create a distance education. The medieval university continued the tradition of Hero, and they had the same problem. Is Gutenberg, when he created the printing press, he printed these huge books. They were huge books. You needed 2 people to carry it. It went to the front of the room, and the lecturer had a key. He would come in, open the key, and he would read from the book. And the students would listen. Again, the only reason for the classroom is there was no other way of learning. They had to go and learn in the classroom. Of course, as you can see from this painting, that even in those days, students in the back were still sleeping. Traditional university, again, these are the educational creationists who believe that somehow it is superior to distance education. And they talk about quality. What is the quality control in a typical traditional university? Very simple. You take a PhD and you put them in a classroom. That's it. In distance education, we have subject matter experts, not one experts. We have instructional designers. We have technical people. We have a team approach that ensures that quality is embedded in the courses. Is there any content in traditional universities? Yes, there is. There's content control over what they teach, but there is no control of how it is taught. There is no instructional design in their materials. We call these people the educational Amish. In Canada, we have these people who choose to live in the 19th century, and that is their freedom. They should do that. But these traditional education classroom supporters, we cannot let them keep us in the 19th century. We're in the 21st century. There's been a whole other century in between. But they want to keep us in the 19th century, like the educational Amish, as we call them. And we need to evolve and work in the 21st century where there's a digital economy, where the world is based on bits of information, and where we do not have just one copy of anything, where we have millions of copies that are infinitely reproducible, and we can reach far greater numbers of people. Tom Russell reminds us of the no significant difference phenomenon. More than 500 studies showing that regardless of the technology or the media, whether it's in a classroom or not, whether using video or any kind of technology, there is no significant difference in the educational outcomes. We know this. This is a fact. There is no research evidence supporting the idea that traditional classroom-based learning is in any way superior to any other form of learning. So let's go digital. Let's go digital with our students and give our students a modern education. Without the internet, without digital devices, without bits of information, there is no modern education. A modern education must have digital input. So we can say of traditional education that the emperor has no clothes. They have no basis on which to inform their superiority. On the contrary, in distance education, Cinderella has become a princess. That now, traditional universities are coming to distance universities and asking us how we do it. It's changed. The world climate has changed. The world is online. The world is global. Our students need to be online and global. So, let's wake up and smell the coffee. Let's challenge traditional university supporters for what they are. They are educational creationists, or even educational Amish. Now, in order to be digital, online, global, using mobile devices, we need open educational resources. Because I believe that the challenge for educators in the 21st century is outlined here by John Daniel, that by 2025 there will be about 100 million new students capable of post-secondary learning who will not be able to access it because either it is not available in their community or they cannot afford it. In order to do this using traditional universities, we would have to build 4 new universities every week of 30,000 students between now and 2025. We know that this is impossible, but we need to educate these students. And to do so, we need distance education. We need online learning. How do we educate all these learners? In 2012, UNESCO and the Commonwealth of Learning came up with the 2012 OER Declaration, and they said that open educational resources will help us to achieve the Millennium Goals of universal education for all. Now, what are open education resources? Many people think they're just textbooks. They're not just textbooks. They could be a video, they could be a game, they could be curriculum, they could be multimedia, interactive lessons, anything like that could be an open educational resource. Here's something. How many here have heard of the unit of measurement called a twitch? In English, a twitch is this. That's a twitch. But in computer game design, a twitch is the amount of time it takes you to move your finger on a fingerboard or move a joystick. It's equivalent, thank you, it's equivalent to 2 jiffies, or 200 milliseconds. Guess what? In 200 milliseconds, electrons on a wire can travel 20,000 kilometers. There is nowhere on Earth further away than 20,000 kilometers. What does that tell us? That God, in His or her infinite wisdom, designed the world perfectly for playing video games. Video games are really important for learning. They are very efficient and effective means of conveying, sharing information, and teaching and learning. The US military uses them extensively because they have found over the years that the quickest, most efficient way to train soldiers is with video games. We as educators need to look at these video games and start rethinking the way we design our teaching and learning. And we need to keep them open as open resources. But for open educational resources, the characteristics is that we can do these things. Mixing, we can create a new resource, we can adapt them to multiple contexts, we can extract stuff we don't want, take it out and throw it away. We can localize it, change it to suit our institution's purposes. We can translate them to another language. We can reuse them, or we can repurpose them. We can do what we want with them. This is the real advantage of open resources. And we make our resources open by using a Creative Commons license. Everything that's created comes with a copyright. So you as the author or the publisher, in order to make it open, you must put on a license. And the one we're recommending and is most in use now is the Creative Commons license. And you can restrict the license in the following ways. You can use the attribution. That is, anyone can use your product any way they want, but they must put your name on it. And of course, as educators, we know we have to do that anyway. Otherwise, it's called plagiarism, and we don't want to plagiarize. So the most common one and the most open license is CC BY. Below that, we have CC share alike, which means anyone can use it, anyone can change it, alter it, augment it, do what you want with it, but you must keep the same license. You cannot change the license. If you want to, those are the two recommended licenses by the open consortium and the openness world. The other two are for special cases. So the top one is no derivatives. And that means anyone can use it, but they cannot change it. And you'll see this quite often with scholarly articles, where they want you to use your article, but they don't want you to change the article in any way. And for some circumstances, it makes sense. And the last one there is non-commercial. That is, if you want to make money on it, you want to share it, but if somebody else is going to make money on it, you want a piece of the money. You want some of the money. And so that one restricts it, and people think it's, educators think they're going to make a lot of money or somebody's going to make money. It rarely happens, I can assure you. It rarely happens. I have a best-selling book out on learning objects, 375 copies. That's a best-selling book. And in fact, when I wrote it, I couldn't believe that there were 375 people in the world who would be interested in learning objects. So scholarly books, you don't make money on them. So we need to open them and make them available. And to give an example what's happening with us, we have an open access press at Athabasca University, AU Press. The books are all open access. One of our professors who wrote The Theory and Practice of Distance Education, as I said, a best-selling book would be 300 or 500 in an educational context. He's had 80,000 downloads. He's become world famous. He's invited all over the world to talk about his book. 80,000 downloads. And he sold over 2,000 print copies, which he's got money from. So you can do a lot better with mobile devices. Another one on mobile learning, which I'll recommend if you want to learn more about mobile learning, has over 120,000 downloads all around the world, people reading his book and again making him famous. And he's made a fair bit of money. He hasn't got rich from it. Educators don't get rich, but he's made a fair bit of money from the print copy. And it's been translated into Arabic and Chinese. Now, the publishers like to talk about intellectual property. And the cartoon puts it very well, you know, that it's hard to believe that Ooty Wooty Sweet Patootie is intellectual property. It is neither intellectual nor property. And now I'm speaking about common law because I am not familiar with the law you have in Brazil. But in Canada and the United States and most English speaking countries, we have common law. And in common law, it is not intellectual property. The correct term is privileged monopoly. But we call intellectual property an Orwellian word. It means its opposite. It is neither intellectual nor property. What an author has, what a publisher has, is a monopoly enforced by the government for them only to use to profit from their work. It is not property, and there's been quite a few legal cases in both the United States and other common law countries showing that. It is not property. They use the word property because we like property as humans. We do not like monopolies. In fact, in many cases, we hate monopolies, so we don't like to use it. But in fact, what an author has, what a publisher has, is a privileged monopoly. Now, why do we need OER rather than commercial content? And I put two reasons here before you: digital rights management and digital licenses. Digital rights management is the locks that they put onto your device. They put on locks on it so as you cannot use your device the way you may want to use it. And digital licenses legally restrict you from breaking the locks and using your device the way you want. I call it digital restrictions management rather than digital rights management. With digital rights management, they put in controls on your device, so if you have an e-textbook, you can't copy, paste, annotate, or highlight. No text-to-speech, which is bad for people with visual disabilities. You can't change the format. You cannot move the material from one computer to another. You cannot print it out. You cannot move it geographically. I was reading an e-book on a plane. On the plane, I tried to read it, and it came up, you are not connected to the internet. We cannot verify that you are the owner of this content. Couldn't read it. I paid for the book. I got to France. I was in my hotel room. I thought, well, now I have an internet connection. I'll get on, and it says this is not available in France. So they're stopping me from reading the book that I'd paid for. And with textbooks in particular, after an expiry date, it disappears. So can you imagine a student, they have an e-book, Calculus 1. And now next semester they're taking Calculus 2, but their Calculus 1 book has disappeared from their computer. That's what's happening. And of course, with a print book, you can resell it, but with an e-book, you cannot resell it. So these are all the problems that we have with digital rights management. I hope I've convinced you that intellectual property is a sham word. It is not property. But this is property. This is my property. I own this. This is my device. But the digital lock restricts me and stops me from using my device the way I want to use the device. And I haven't committed any crime. They do that even before I even think of doing a crime. They're prohibiting me. And we put this question to you: can we not own and control our own property? You buy a hammer. Are you going to let the company tell you which nails you can use when you're nailing into the wall with your hammer? That's what's happening. They want to sell you their material and then tell you and control how you use it. They handcuff you. But we're innocent. We haven't done anything wrong. And they've even suggested this, that they will blow up your device if you use it in a way that they don't want you to use it. And this was introduced to the American Congress. Luckily, the law did not pass. There were some people with a bit of intelligence in Congress. But that was a few years ago. Now, I don't know what they're like in Congress today. How many here have heard of Error 53? I hope nobody. Because if you have, you're in big trouble. Error 53 comes onto your iPhone if somebody else fixes it. So if it gets damaged and you do not go to an Apple dealer, you get somebody else to fix it. When you upgrade your to the next operating system, you will get error 53 and it destroys your device. You cannot use the device anymore. And this has been happening to a few people. It just started about 2 months ago. And people are already complaining about it. One was he was a reporter in Kosovo, and there is no Apple dealer in Kosovo, and he needed his device for his reporting, so he went to a local shop. They fixed it for him, and it worked fine. When he got back to England, he went to upgrade the operating system, and he got the error 53 message. And he went to the iPhone store then, and they said there's nothing he could do. He has to buy a new iPhone. And so it's really happening that they control your device, and they can ruin your device that you paid for. Now, digital licenses are the laws that stop you from doing all the things that the digital locks stop you from doing. It is the legal reinforcement of the DRM. How many here have read a digital license of software? So there's 2 nerds in the room. Nobody reads digital licenses, only nerds. I've read quite a few of them, so yes, I guess I'm a nerd. But when you click on the I agree, what are you agreeing to? Most people don't know. Well, here's some of the things you're agreeing to. You're agreeing that the company has no liability, even if the product doesn't work. If you buy a toaster, in most countries, they have a liability. It must work. You know, I mean, if you buy anything, there's liability, but you have said, you've agreed that they don't have any liability. You've agreed that they can invade your computer now without your permission and collect and use your personal data. And it's not the data restricted to their application. You've agreed they can use any of your personal data for any reason. You've also agreed that you have a privilege to use the product, but you don't own it. And one of the most onerous ones, and for educators the most serious one, I believe, is that you are prohibited to show your content to others. In the United States, this is a criminal offense. If you read an interesting passage from your textbook and you show it to somebody else, you have committed a criminal offense. You can go to jail for this. Can you imagine being in jail with all these murderers and all kinds of bank robbers and everything, and they ask you, what are you in jail for? And you have to tell them because you showed this to your wife? It's a scary thought, but that's the law. And by the way, with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I know Brazil isn't a member of it, but there's 15 countries members of it. The US is pushing that it be criminal in all those countries to show your information to somebody else. And you must accept that you have no rights when you click on the license. So, with all those problems, David Wiley says, when you subscribe to content through a digital service, the publisher achieves complete and perfect control over you and your use of their content. They want full control. Vendors can control how, when, where, and that's wonderful. But as educators, we need to share, because sharing is essential for education. We need to share our knowledge. That's what education That is what research and education is all about. So instead of fighting them, let them have their strict laws. We in education should go open. And I believe in that. If I were to write a book, The 50 Shades of McGreal, or something like that, which would be a bestseller, I would put copyright on it. But I'm doing educational material, I'd use an open license. So we're not against copyright. Copyright has its place. I mean, we're against the ridiculous extensions of copyright to 70 years, and even 50 years is too long after the death of the author. But copyright has its place. We believe that open educational resources are essential for e-learning implementations. And I mentioned the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's the largest corporate power grab that you've never heard of. And Peru and Chile in South America are members, but others are talking about joining, and they're trying to force strict copyright laws on everyone. Canada has 50 years past the life of the author. Ernest Hemingway is public domain in Canada, not in the United States. John Steinbeck is public domain in Canada, not in the United States. The early Elvis Presley is public domain in Canada, not in the United States. But they are trying to change the laws and force everybody to accept 70 years after the death. It's called the Mickey Mouse Law, because every time Mickey Mouse comes up to go into the public domain, they change the law and extend it. But this explains why the United States is leading in this strict copyright regime. This map shows the size of countries as to the royalties they receive. So the more royalties you receive, the bigger your country. Well, if you look there, over 50% of the world's royalties go to the United States. The other big countries there are Europe and Japan. They are the three countries that are pushing for strict copyright laws. It is an advantage for them. There is no advantage in this for other countries. And that's why they're pushing the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement. Eric Hoffer put it this way: when people are free to do as they please, they usually imitate each other. There are no chaste minds. Minds copulate wherever they meet. And Stephen Downes put it this way: it's fascinating that we live in a society where openness and sharing can actually be considered crimes. The first thing we teach our children is sharing. When they go to preschool, the first thing they learn is how to share. It is so essential for learning and education, and yet they're trying to make out that this is some kind of a crime. Openness is the skeleton key that unlocks every attempt at vendor control and lock-in. They can't control us if we go open. So how can we participate? Well, we have the OER Chairs Network, and Tel is your representative here, but there's a few of us around the world in different countries, on different continents, working together to promote open educational resources. There's the Global OER Graduate Network, which encourages students who are studying at the PhD level about open educational resources. They team together and they join this network, and they exchange research and exchange ideas, etc., both the teachers and the students. You can visit the OER Knowledge Cloud. This is at Athabasca University. and it has over 1,000 articles and reports, scholarly articles and reports about open educational resources. And there's some of them that are available there, and some others. You can go to call.org and you can find some basic information about open educational resources. MOOCs, people ask me, and I could talk a whole other talk on MOOCs. Here we're just going to mention them, that massive open online courses are around. They are possible. They're making us realize that mass education is a possibility. But the one thing you must know today that I want you to remember is that they were not invented in the United States. MOOCs came from Canada. The first people were Stephen Downes and George Siemens, and I participated in the first MOOC, as did many other faculty from Athabasca University. It's a Canadian phenomenon, not American. And how many have heard of Coursera, the big MOOC leaders? They give you a statement of accomplishment. And in the agreement you sign with them, you agree that you may not use it as part of any tuition-based or 4-credit certification program. Well, here you have a certificate that you cannot use. The whole purpose of a certificate is to show people so they know that you've learned the material. And here they give you one, but you're not allowed to use it. A totally new concept they're bringing in the world. I mean, it's a useless certification. And what it is they're saying they own what's in your head. You don't own what you've learned. They own it. You're not allowed to use it the way you want to use it. It's a very strange way the world is going with ownership and copyright. Now, if we look at a course, a MOOC is the content part. Peer learning, in many MOOCs, the students create the self-organized groups. And some MOOCs, they organize the groups and help the students do that. And then you have the accreditation or the formal assessment. So these are all different, and in fact, they do not have to be all together. They can be disaggregated. And that means that one institution can do the MOOC, another institution can have peer learning, and another institution do the formal assessment. And that is happening today, where many institutions are creating student groups to follow MOOCs from another university, and that the student then goes for formal assessment somewhere else. Now, we are members of the OER Universitas project, OERU for short, and it's based on this idea. Learners who access open education resources using any faculty, using any course materials, probably OER, but not necessarily. But if they want an Athabasca University credential, they take our assessment and we give them our credential. If they want a University of Southern Queensland assessment in Australia, they go and take the University of Queensland assessment. If they want the Open University UK, they go there. So that is the model for the OER Universitas. Now, Athabasca University is participating in this. Our motto is open, online, everywhere. We are Canada's open university. We believe in the removal of barriers to university education, excellence, and we believe in public service. We're supporting OER for sustainability. There are challenges now from other institutions. For many years, we were the only game in town. We were the only deliverers of distance education in English in Canada. But now many institutions are online and delivering courses. So it's a challenge for us We have entrenched systems in our university that we need to change. OER are helping to facilitate the change. Change is very difficult. They say the only people who like change are wet babies. So, OER at our university is a change facilitator. It fits our open mandate. We are now assembling courses rather than developing them and designing them ourselves. We're taking OER from different places, building our courses. Cost sharing. We allow our OER to be used by other universities. We use theirs. This shares the cost of development. It increases access, and it's driving innovation and change within our university. The benefit to students, the big one is cost saving, is they don't have to pay $150 for a textbook. We can give advanced access for students, so students who are interested in our courses can look at them now that they're OER, they're available freely online, and they can get ahead before they even start. We can add OER on and have new pathways. They say that if there's not one pathway to learning, we can add on different OERs who attack a problem in a different way, and we can use them in our courses. And this gives the students choice in our courses. Jansen et al., they put these scenarios together of what's possible. You can have all OER and make your revenue from service. So if all our courses are open, they want help from a tutor, from a teacher, they're paying for that. They want an exam and a credential, they pay for that. Another approach is only OER for short market-driven courses. So we put out a short course just to give them a flavor of Athabasca University. Or we can integrate OER with commercial and gradually debone courses. That is, we have commercial content, we put in open education resources, take out the commercial content, and gradually change our courses like that. And right now we are doing only OER for short market. We are doing that. We are integrating OER with commercial courses. And we are working on a plan for all OER at the first year level. So we will be offering first year free to anyone who wants it. But some of our faculty say, what are you doing? You're giving away the crown jewels. Will students register in our paid courses if they can get it OER for free? But what Johansson and Wiley found in Utah when they tried it is there was no reduction in paid enrollments when they opened up the resources. In fact, there was a slight but insignificant increase in enrollments. And what we're hoping, we do not know this, is that by allowing all these students free education, OER, and taking our exams, that this will bring more students into our other programs in second, third, and fourth year. We don't know that. I suspect it could be true. If we get tens of thousands of students taking our exams and doing that way, then it could happen. We have prior learning assessment. So you, as an adult, you have experience in industry. We will recognize that. Or you can challenge for credit at our university. You can say, I know third year French. We give them an assessment of their third year French knowledge, and if they pass, we give them the credit. We have automated assessments, so now it's all on a computer. We have quite a few exams now totally on computer. And we accept credits from other universities. If you have credits from different universities, we will accept them and apply them towards your degree. Book or by telephone, they meet people who know the answers. 85% of questions from students are about administrative issues, not about the course. So they go into a call center and these people have the answers, they know. And if it's about the course, they direct them to the professor. And we have home-based exams now where you can take your exam at home. There's a special camera. We can see if anyone else is in the room, what books you have. And we can tell by the keystrokes that it's you. Everyone types the keystrokes differently. And also we're using testing centers around all over Canada. We have agreements with different universities and colleges that students can go there for the tests. And now we're working with private sector testing companies in the United States and internationally. For online testing, two private companies I mentioned there, Criterion and ProctorU, they do the testing and proctoring for us, and they're very good at it because they're proctors, they are not teachers, they're people whose job is to proctor exams. They know all the tricks of cheating. They're trained, that is their job. Whereas our professors walk up and down in a big room and they don't know how people cheat or anything, nor do they care, they just want to get out of the room. So, with online testing, learners can access OER and then take the test. This is a cost-effective, scalable system. And we found that we need testing centers in the USA because you cannot deliver distance education in any state unless you have a center there. And by contracting with these private sector centers, we now have a presence in every state. But our big problem is this: challenge for credit fees. When students come to us to take an exam, we charge $357 for the exam. Foreign students, $714. This is too much. Our plan will not work with these fees. So we are now working on a reduction to $199. By the way, that's Canadian dollars, which I think is about, what, $20 now? No, I'm just kidding. It's pretty low. It's about $199. It'd be about $120 Canadian. We originally, faculty designed these fees to discourage students from taking these exams. They didn't want them to take the exams. And there's a fear of bleeding. And by bleeding, we mean that our own students who pay for courses will stop paying for courses and just take the exam. And we believe this is a real fear. But the argument we use is, do we want to bleed our students, or do we want another university to take our students? And you're better off you bleeding your own students than somebody else doing it. And of course, there's all kinds of access to knowledge on the World Wide Web, and quite often students don't even need your course material to pass a course. So in Canada, we have a major initiative in our western province, British Columbia, and they have a program development fund, and that 40 should be changed to 140 first-year post-secondary courses as OER. And by the way, they are OER. You can go and take them and translate them into Portuguese and do what you want with them. But they have all been vetted by teachers. They are certified, and these are good courses. It was the first major OER initiative in Canada. In Alberta, I mentioned that I'm the co-chair of the Alberta initiative in OER, and we're working with British Columbia, and we have about 10 or 12 courses now available as OER. We call it the Campus Alberta OER Steering Committee, and we have $2 million. And we insist on the CC BY SA license. Our goals: reduce costs for students, bring in flexible, relevant content, and have a sustainable system for the OER. Our outcomes for the PSE in Alberta is learner impact. That is, how many dollars will this save students? And we know for a fact now, for example, we have one course, 2,000 students, accounting 101. $200 for the textbook. We've replaced that with an OER. $400,000 in savings from one course. So we know that. And there's quite a few other courses. So we're talking already about millions of dollars in savings for our students. Collaboration. We're supporting collaboration among institutions to use each other's OER. And of course, the biggest problem, and it is a worldwide problem, is awareness. We need to build awareness because we find most educators, once they understand what it's about, they support it. But they don't even know it exists. They don't even understand the problem at the moment. And we need to build in sustainable systems. And here's some here. We have in Alberta, math, genetics, physics, logic, logistics. One of the key criteria is no duplication, must be CC by SA. It must show cost savings, show collaboration, and fit into a category for a degree. We supported awareness, content, and sustainability in the first round. In the second round, we are supporting $500 to any professor who does a review of a OER. For sustainability, we're putting in institutional awards, so as institutions can develop their own awareness strategy. We want to build capacity in OER through reviews and sustainability. And at Athabasca, these are our OER courses that we're working on: beginning Spanish, health, clinical health, occupational health, physical geography, and financial accounting. In some of the colleges, English second language, reading skills, library, workplace communications. And these are all being supported by the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources. So there's a real opportunity here, and if public institutions do not adapt, then the gap will be filled by private for-profit entrepreneurs. And I have no sympathy for our faculty who say, look at all these big American companies and they're taking over education and everything. Well, my view is, if we don't do it, let them do it. It's great, wonderful that they're doing it. And it's in you're confused is because the world is confusing. And be very careful of anyone who thinks they know exactly what they're doing. They are either fools or charlatans. Be very careful. It is confusing. Let's face it, everything you know is wrong. Every day, computers are making people easier to use. It's changing. Everything is changing. I'll finish with this, these few slides. The Royal Society in the UK is the oldest scientific society in the world. They say that the restriction of the commons by patents, copyright, and databases is not in the interests of society and unduly hampers scientific endeavor. The previous Pope Benedict said, on the part of rich countries, there is excessive zeal for protecting knowledge through an unduly rigid assertion of the right to intellectual property. What does this tell us? That God is on our side. Also science. Science is on our side too. Science and God is on our side. We are on the side of the angels. I want to finish off with this story now about this frog. It's a story is that if you put a frog in water and you slowly heat up the water till it boils, it won't jump. By the time it realizes it's boiling, its legs are cooked, it can't jump. And I tell this story because I believe the technology is bubbling all around us, and at some point we must jump. And if we don't jump, we're going to be cooked. So I put this story out on the internet, and I get this email back from somewhere in Asia, and it said, "Very sorry, Dr. McGreal, but at 45 degrees Celsius, a knee-jerk reaction in the something, something, something muscle of the right anterior something, something else causes it to automatically eject from the water." And I thought, oh my God, there's people putting frogs in water and boiling them because of my story. So I had to put a disclaimer out on the internet. I put out a disclaimer. I said, there seems to be a cultural misunderstanding. I said, I come from the maritime regions of Canada, and there we do not let facts interfere with a good story. So I'll thank you with that. Thank you very much for listening to me.